Hi, I'm Lesley Schierenbeck, the History Chick, and welcome to America's Playground. On today's episode, we're going to be diving into, just like the Steel Pier horses, the Prohibition history of Atlantic City. Now, anybody that's famous with the show Boardwalk Empire surely knows some of it. However, today, in order to get you situated, we're going to need to go over some of the key players in this game of chance. One of the most infamous people in Atlantic City in the 1920s was Enoch Nucky Johnson, a Republican political party boss that allowed for Atlantic City to basically stay open during Prohibition. So Prohibition was a time in America's history when alcohol was outlawed, but not here in Atlantic City, giving it the moniker America's Playground. So why would Al Capone come here in the 1920s for a week? Well, using the guise of Meyer Lasky's honeymoon, Capone and other cronies came here to try to put an end to mob violence. You know, it wasn't that long ago that Capone was involved in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And so he and a bunch of his Italian, Jewish, and other notorious gangster crime syndicates around the area came to Atlantic City in the hopes to work everything out. Now, originally, they were supposed to stay at the Breakers, but because of racialized restrictions and ethnic restrictions, they ended up staying at the Breakers Hotel, a place that is no longer existing but is just a vacant lot. So on today's episode, you're going to place your bets to see how Atlantic City fares during Prohibition. I'm standing in what remains of the boathouse of the Royal Pines Hotel here in Bayville, New Jersey. Now, the building itself has been renamed to Crystal Lake Manor and is currently an assisted living facility here. However, what does this building have to do with Al Capone, Prohibition, and New Jersey's Boardwalk Empire? Well, let me tell you. This place, which was built in 1929 by the B.W. Sanger Corps, was the premier place to come to if you were looking for a little bit of respite and, of course, somewhere where you get a little bit of illegal hooch during Prohibition. So the building was built as a resort hotel. As you can see, the remains of the boathouse. There was a lake that was hand-built for this facility. They had Turkish baths, they had an 18-hole golf course that was supposed to be here, and rumor had it that Al Capone came here and stayed. Now, the problem with the story is Capone, by 1929, was an infamous gangster, and so he would have never utilized his real name on the record books, which is why, even though we'd like to think that he came here, we can't physically prove it. But legend still remains that somewhere out in the woods of Bayville, we're going to be able to find the remains of a cement mansion, the Spanish Mansion, where a 2,500-gallon still was put in Sanger's house to brew that illegal bathtub gin. While the Royal Pines Hotel isn't used as a resort anymore, you can surely find some of the Art Deco glamour of the 1920s on the boardwalk in the Ritz Carlton. Now, we're going to take a look at this important hotel and how it played a role in Prohibition. We're here at the Ritz Carlton. Now, today it's condominiums. It was transferred in 1982, but back in the 1920s, this was the spot where anybody who's anybody came to stay in Atlantic City, the world's playground. This place had fresh and saltwater taps, it had a pool, and it had a merry-go-round bar. In fact, this was the spot that Nucky Johnson used for his offices. He rented out the entire 9th floor of the hotel and utilized it for whatever was necessary in order to keep Atlantic City open during Prohibition. It was said that famous gangsters such as Al Capone came and stayed at the Ritz. However, he was all over town that week during the Gangsters holiday, and so as you check it out, some awesome Art Deco that still remains as an icon of Atlantic City. Let's check out a place that never closed during Prohibition. There's probably no place more synonymous with Prohibition history in Atlantic City than the Irish pub. Known in the 1920s as the Elwood Hotel, this iconic establishment still has affordable rooms and meals and pays homage to the swanky stylings of the 1920s by keeping the decor in tune with Victorian and Art Deco stylings. During Prohibition, the Irish pub never closed. In fact, when it was raided by federal agents, it was said that the patrons from the top balcony chased them out onto the beaches, beating them in order to get their booze back. Be sure when you go to check out the lobby, as it's one of the only places to have an original key rack in the city. So in our Prohibition tour of Atlantic City, it would be remiss to not talk about Garner's Basin. So Garner's Basin, named after James Garner, who was a soldier in the Civil War and also helped found tracts of this land here and became mayor of Atlantic City. This waterway was crucial to understanding Prohibition. So it was here that rum runners would actually come in with their illegal hooch and be able to distribute it throughout Atlantic City. Now you're wondering what remains of this time period in America's history. Well, if you look directly behind me, you'll notice that there are two identical shakered houses. And you can see through one of them that it has a wide opening, almost like a garage. And that's where rum runners would come in and hide from federal authorities to make sure that their booze was illegally smuggled. Now, that would actually act almost like as a garage door where the boat would be hidden from any federal authorities. And to be honest with you, who is coming out here in the middle of the night once those illegal shipments came in? And remember, Lucy's eyes would always tell you the way. We're at America's oldest roadside attraction here at Lucy the Elephant right in Margate, New Jersey. Now, this wasn't the original location of Lucy, so that does tie into our Prohibition story. So Lucy was built in 1881 as a real estate gimmick. That's right. In order for people to buy land here in southern New Jersey, they decided building an elephant colossus such as this would have been a good idea. Now, believe it or not, there are actually 3 elephants that were built at this time. Lucy is the only one remaining. One was at Coney Island and the other was down in Cape May. Lucy's been through a lot in her life. We celebrate her birthday every July, but she ties to Prohibition because at one point there was a beer garden in her belly bar. And supposedly, if you note, Lucy's eyes are windows, and sometimes, if rum runners were coming along the coast, they would glow green if there were no federal agents here looking to smuggle or to take booze that was illegally coming into the shoreline. If there were federal agents, they would apparently glow red. Nowadays, Lucy's eyes sometimes glow blue as a tribute to Frank Sinatra, who was nicknamed Old Blue Eyes. For just a nominal fee, you can climb into the belly of the beast and explore the architecture, artifacts, and get a bird's eye view of Margate and Atlantic City from Lucy's howdah. Just watch out, those Victorian stairs can be tricky. We're here at the Knife and Fork Inn, which was established in 1912 by Mayor Riddle at the time in Atlantic City. This was originally a gents-only club. However, by the time Nucky Johnson got his hands to dining on the inside, women were allowed, but they were allowed only in that second floor room now that has stained glass windows on it. That was the ladies' waiting rooms in order to be called down with the men to have a drink. Now on the 3rd and 4th floor of this establishment, there was gambling and all other sorts of, shall we say, activities of the night that took place. When the Great Depression hit and Prohibition was over, this place actually just ends up becoming a regular restaurant with the family that owned the place living on the 3rd and 4th floors. Since then, it's gone through many periods of restoration. Frank Sinatra ate here. And so now the facade and exterior is just the way that it would have looked like during Nucky's time. And so I want to say thanks for watching this episode of The History Chick. I'm Lesley Schierenbeck. Stick a fork in it. We're done. For history. For history. For history. I'm 38. Follow me, like and subscribe. Okay. Let's blow this peanut stand.